Hi, and welcome to part 3 of our 3-part series for TaxFolder. Today I'm going to talk about sharing client files and managing engagements in TaxFolder. My name is Sarka Hojda, CPA, CGA, and Senior Product Manager with TaxCycle. We're going to pick up where we left off. In part 2, we sent an invite to our client and we asked them to connect to TaxFolder to finish their configuration of their client portal. They got this email in their inbox, and there's a link here where they can connect. So I'm just going to copy this link, and we're going to paste it in this tab. So you can see it in the cell phone view. And they're going to get to a page that says connect to your portal. So you've created a client record in TaxFolder, but they can't access that until they create a TaxCycle sign-on account and connect that to TaxFolder. So if I click sign in or create account, it's going to take me to a TaxCycle account page. And if they already have a TaxCycle account, which when we're doing staff members, most of them will probably have already created a TaxCycle account. But for clients, you might have to walk them through this a little bit. We do try to include those details in the email invite. So if they have been using TaxFolder before, they might just need to reconnect. They can use the credentials they created previously, or they can go down here and create a new account and connect it during this process. So we have, there's Mary. Want to create a new account. Then they set their password at this time. And Mary, run out of space here, Williams. And we're going to enter that. And we're looking for fire hydrants. So let's add those. And verify. And then it's going to ask them for SMS. So this is just an extra layer of security to make sure that we're not accidentally getting somebody who should not have access connecting to your client's personal information. And this is going to come through as a voicemail, so I need to answer this. Please give me a second. Okay, and so now my client is connected and I can turn off, let's go back to a regular screen view. So if they're logging in on a computer, they're going to see it this way. You can see that I've configured my logo here at the top. I've got my sign-in information here is at the top. And they have some options here, so they can go to settings, and I believe that's where they can update their language. If they got it in the wrong language, they can go and change it in settings here. The TaxCycle account details and changing or updating the password or updating the email that attaches for their login is here. It does not have to be the same as the email that you have in your client record in TaxFolder. They can be different. So each engagement will create a banner like this inside of the portal, and it will tell them the status of that engagement here. They would click on the documents. You'll see there's a little badge here saying there's something to do in there. And when they open that up, they're going to see 3 different tabs along the top. So prepare documents is that document that we created and shared with our client from TaxCycle in part 2. And so they would have access to that here. The only thing they can do with the documents that you share with them in this section is download a final copy. So they can download and view this PDF that you've shared with them. And if you need something done with that, they can then re-upload it in the My Documents section. They can't delete or edit anything that you share in this section. That's 100% under your control. The My Documents are client files that they share with you. So when you're preparing the client files, the client engagement, and you're requesting them to upload their documents, you're probably expecting them to send you all of their slips that you are going to need and source documents that you're going to need to prepare that income tax return that you're working on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag a few sample documents in here. Let's say they are sending you, where did it go? Here, so they're going to send you a T4. I'm just going to drag and drop that in there. And maybe they're sending you some financial statement that you need to get in Excel, so they can send that to you as well. And so now I have 2 source documents or files that my client has shared with me. And when they're done, they can click this I'm finished button. And when they do that, it's going to send a notification to you as to the preparer that's assigned to the engagement, and notify them that the client has said, I'm done uploading all of my documents and my file is ready to start, is ready to go for preparation. And then they can either exit here, or you can see there's also a badge on number 1. That means that there's a document here that's not signed. So they can also sign documents from their client portal. It will still run them through the standard SMS to protocol that we have in place for the security purposes. But they can also come in here and download final copies if they want, or if they're looking for their documents, they can find them in here as well. And I did, between part 2 and part 3, I did partially sign that T1032 that we sent out, just so you can see how that looks from TaxCycle and within TaxFolder. So we'll take a look at that as we go through this. So that's the client portal view. I'm going to exit out of here. We'll go back to the preparer dashboard. And now if I look at Mary's engagement, I should see the documents that Mary has uploaded to me. And you'll notice that they have a little icon here with an exclamation mark in it. And that's just to denote that that's a new upload that I haven't looked at. Once I viewed this page and move off the page, that's going to clear the icon. And in here, I have the ability to also make some changes. But before we go into that, I just want to go back to the dashboard, because I wanted to show you a few things here about the dashboard that we haven't covered in the previous installments. So we have client list. Here is, on each of these tabs, we have a filter box. So if I wanted to filter my list, or if I'm searching for a specific client, I can do that with this search box at the top. So it just makes it a lot easier to hone in on the information that you're looking for. This client list page also has the option to delete clients. And what delete does is really it just makes the client inactive. So they're still there in the background, and you can recover them at some point in the future if you need to, but it's going to remove them from the list so it's not clogging up your view at this point. So if I deleted this client, it gives me this scary warning, but it's still going to be there. And then I have this option to restore the client again later. And you can hide all of those deleted clients with this filter here at the top. There's also an option, there's some options here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but they're available on all of the tabs, where you can create a copy of your page, you can print it, or you can export it to a CSV if you want to work with this data outside of TaxFolder. And then the last thing here I wanted to mention is that there is a column here that will tell you whether or not your client is connected to TaxFolder. So we just connected Mary, and you can see that the icon changed to green now. These ones are not connected, and that's how I know if my client can actually access their client portal. On the pending tab, this is the engagement that I created for James Smith. I assigned it to my staff member. And the reason it shows here in pending is because when I create it and I assign it to somebody else, they then have to open that and accept that engagement. So if I were to go into the engagement, there's a little start engagement button here. If I click that, then it'll move it off of that pending tab, and it's going to put it in the in progress tab now for me. I'll just hit refresh. It should show up here. Okay, so the other thing that I wanted to show you here is, again, we have the filter option and we have a refresh option. Let's see if that will bring in. All right. It is assigned, I think, yes? Yes, okay. So what I also wanted to show you here was we do have the option also on the client list. You can sort by first name by using these little arrow keys, or last name. If you wanted to sort this way in your list, you can sort by email, time and progress if you like. These columns are your status columns. So this one tells me that I've requested. If I hover it over, this is the document status. So this is the status of the file documents that my client has shared with me. This tells me that I've requested documents from the client, and once they hit that I'm finished button that I showed you in the client portal, this will turn to green, and then you'll know based on this column that it's ready to process. This gives me a count of the files that the client has uploaded to me to look at. And if I mark those files as used in the client engagement, it will remove them from this count. So it'll be all of the ones that I haven't marked as used. So I haven't specifically said, I've already looked at this, I've dealt with it, I don't need to look at it anymore. And I'll show you where to do that in the client engagement. And then this last one is your document approval status. So it's the documents that you've sent for signature or approval. And it's saying that I have at least one document that I'm waiting for a client response on. And I won't have anything in completed because I haven't set any of my documents to completed yet. But if I do that, it's going to move them out of in progress and it will show them on the completed tab. Oh, I wanted to show you, before I leave this page, I wanted to show you batch operations. So there are a couple of batch operations on the in progress tab. And if I select this, it's going to select everything on the screen that I can see at this time. And it's going to give me this other menu. So I can batch reassign. So if I have an employee maybe that's leaving my firm and I need to reassign all of their engagements to somebody new, then I can go ahead and select, I can probably filter by their preparer name and then select them here and assign them in bulk so I don't have to do those one at a time. I can also batch complete. So at the end of the season, if I just want to clear out all the engagements, because I know I'm done and I'm not going to have any new engagements coming in for a while, I can just go ahead and select everything and set them to completed here. If you want to see more on the page, you can just change the number of lines that you see on your dashboard page here. Okay, so we're going to go back into Mary's engagement. And I mentioned that you can set the files to used. So I showed you in part 2, upload files and some of the things you can do by downloading or deleting. You have some similar operations here for client files. So I can click on it to open it and view it in the browser if I want to. I can edit the file name if I want to make it something more meaningful to me when I'm going back to reference the engagement. I can also select one or many of these, and I can mark them as used. And as I said, when I do that, it's going to update the count on my in progress tab. So if I set these to used, you'll see that in this column that I've set it to used. I can also select these and download them. It's going to create a zip file that's going to download into wherever you've got it set to download from your browser. And then you can pick that up and save that somewhere on a local drive if you prefer to keep them there. And you also have the option to delete files here as well. Also know that your client has full control and they also can upload and delete their own files when they're using their client portal. So we'll just go back to the dashboard to see that that dashboard should have updated for me, and it did. So now it's showing 0 files there, which is correct because I've marked the 2 that were uploaded as used. So that's one way you can track and monitor your engagement progress as you go through. All right, so let's go back into the engagement. I just wanted to cover a few more things that you can do in here. We talked about client settings already. You can also print this entire page if you wanted to store a copy of that in your permanent file with this engagement. If you needed to add additional engagements, you can do that here. You can also do that from the Client tab in the Client tab dashboard, but here's another way you can do that. And then there's also a section here where you can keep some notes about this engagement if you want to communicate to the preparer that's working on this, or if there's some information you want to store related to the file, you can do that here. This is only visible to you and your team. It does not get shared with the client. We covered client files and preparer files. At the bottom here, we also have some engagement settings. So if for some reason we selected the wrong tax year when we created TaxFolder, you can change that here. If you wanted to change the label, you can also do that here. So maybe I mistyped something or the engagement changed somehow and I need to update that, I can update the label here. You can change the status of an engagement. So if you set something to completed, for example, and you need to set it back to in progress, you can do that by selecting this button here. And you also have the ability, when we talked about settings in part 1, we talked about how you can turn the client file uploads on or off for all clients in settings. If you want to, you can also selectively turn it on or off for just one engagement. So that's where I would do that here. So if I didn't want, for whatever reason, this particular client to be able to upload files to me, or maybe I don't want them to be able to upload any more files to me, I can disable this, but that means they will not see that My Files section in the client portal anymore if I were to disable their file uploads. And lastly, you can also delete an engagement. If you do delete an engagement, this is not recoverable. So only do that if you're certain you will never ever need to have access to that information again, because that is a permanent delete. Okay, I'm going to go back to my TaxCycle file quickly. And remember I said that we made some changes this year. So your T1032 will now show who has signed. And you can see that up in the banner now. I did get one person of the 2 has already signed, and it's telling me that I'm waiting on another signer. I still have the option to do all of these other things that I had before. If I resend it at this point, it's going to reset all of the signatures. So it's not just going to resend it with the one signed. It's going to now ask both signers to sign again. So I'd be careful with using this option when one has already signed because it might confuse your client. If I pop down to the bottom, then you can see who has signed here. Is also showing. So William is signed and I'm waiting on Mary to sign this form. So that's going to make it real easy for me to follow up with the person who still needs to sign. We also clarified in the notification, in the top portion of the notification, who is signing from which link. So that should clarify some of the confusion that was happening in prior years. So that's T1032. One other thing that I wanted to quickly mention, there is one more option for security if you wanted. So the base level is SMS on documents that you cannot turn off. It is always on by default. You can add an additional layer of authentication questions only for T1, and that's this require additional knowledge-based authentication questions. So if you turn this on, it's going to ask your client 3 more additional questions in addition to entering that SMS number. They will also have to enter their last name, the last 4 digits of their social insurance number, and their birthday, and they're going to have to get those all correct in order to be able to access their document. And that option is available here from TaxCycle. It's also available, I was going to say from TaxFolder, but I don't think it is. I think it's only available here from T1 in TaxCycle. Okay, so just a few other things. I think we're getting close to time here. Go back to my TaxFolder dashboard. A few other things I wanted to show you. So when you're done, I showed you the batch functionality that you have to complete engagements, so you can complete en masse. If I'm already in this engagement and I know I'm done with it, I can also set it to completed here if I like by clicking on this button, and that will move it to my completed status and the completed tab as well for me. So that's another way to get there. And I also wanted to show you that there is a history function here in TaxFolder as well. So if I click on history, it's going to take me into a list of all of the events that we track that happen in TaxFolder. And by default, because I came here from the engagement, you can see the engagement IDs already populated in my search box. It's going to give me everything that has happened with that engagement since in this case, for the last 7 days. I can open that up to a longer range if I need, but by default, we'll give you the last 7 days. Or I can clear this search box and I can filter by one of these other categories if I want to see what's happening with various items. I'm not going to go through all of the settings, but this is another way that you can also take a look at some of the document information that is happening in the background. And I believe that's all that I was going to cover here today. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this valuable, and I wish you all a great tax season.